time again, come gather round. We're here to share insights, lift you off the ground. With culture and wellness and harmony they flow, helping you thrive, that's how we grow. Every other Monday we bring you cheer. Sumana, Ashley, and Felipe are near. Strong, the team's bright, and days ahead, building a workplace where passion is spread. Tune in, meet it, it's a brand new height. Healthy, happy, let's make it right. Mental clarity, physical strength, so true. Financial wisdom and tools just for you. Lessons and stories, insights that shine. Empower your journey, make it divine. Workplace wellness, our scenes and free insight. Join us and together, let's ignite.
Everyone, I have an announcement.
Well, hello, and welcome everyone to another Workplace Wellness Hour. We had a little new intro that we've been playing around with AI lyrics and AI music, and so don't criticize too much about it because we are just playing with it. But let us know in the chats what you think about that intro if you heard it. But welcome back to another Monday here where we are tackling part 3 of the Future of Work series here at the Workplace Wellness, and we want to talk about the return to office mandates. Is it rebuilding connections or is it a forced compliance? And we want to welcome people to join us on stage in a little bit, whether you're on the side of you think it's a good thing or you think it's a bad thing or you think there's a happy middle ground. It's a safe place for you all to speak up and share. But before we dive into the topic, I want to introduce and let these amazing two co-hosts introduce themselves. So Ashley, why don't we start with you and share a little introduction and your initial thoughts about the future of work and returning to the office.
Sounds good. Thanks, Felipe. I also want to applaud you for creating that song for our intro. Getting to the end of it, especially this time, like when you played it for the show, I thoroughly enjoyed that. So thank you. But yes, hello, everybody. I'm Ashley Fluellen. I am an artist and I'm trying out a new bio right now. Okay, let me get it. I'm an artist and the founder of Dear Imperfect Artist. And the goal of Dear Imperfect Artist is to help busy adults with cultivating a creative practice. So I'm currently in the process of developing some online courses to help busy adults, invite more art making into their lives. And hopefully this bio will expand in the next couple of weeks. But yes, and then thoughts for today. I'm really excited about this conversation, especially because things are just changing so quickly. And it seems like every single day there's something new to think about, to plan for, to negotiate. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, just kind of how I've been managing that. And then, yeah, I know Sumana has some great things planned for us as well. So I'll go ahead and pass over to her. Hi, Sumana.
Hi. Wow, that was such a wonderful, I wish we could record our expressions and reaction to that video. At least the first time I saw it, Felipe, it was amazing. Ashley, I love your intro so much. I was like, what do I say as my intro? Because I always say the same thing. And I thought, I'm going to say, I'm Sumana. I'm the mad scientist of the group. I design workplace wellness strategies. I'm not that mad of a scientist. I'll be honest. I do have my own kind of crazy scientist way when I do things. And sometimes I do wonder, like, am I doing this right? But it brings me back to, the way I used to do things when I was in the lab working for healthcare But now I run Jeddy Wellness, which I'm very proud of. And we take some of those science-based solutions and we teach workplaces and especially professionals and managers how to prevent burnout, but also how to work in today's workforce with all the changing dynamics, especially with remote work. And I love this topic because I've been talking about this since last year when I did a LinkedIn poll when Amazon, when that news article came that Amazon's asking everyone to come back to the office full time. I had to ask LinkedIn what their thoughts were on that. So I had done a poll, and a lot of you said, over 50% of you said, hybrid is the best. So this is something that's been on our radar for a long time. And I love the title. Is it rebuilding connections or forced compliance? I think the idea of what connection means and what sense of belonging means and why flexibility is so important to caregivers, to parents, to professionals. I want to dive into a lot of those things, but I'll stop there. I know Felipe is going to be in and out today as much as possible. So while he's not around, we will help co-facilitate. Ashley and I will co-facilitate this together. And Felipe, I'd love to, hear from you a little bit. Introduce yourself. You've been such an important pillar of this Workplace Wellness Hour crew. And I'm so pleased and always grateful that you make the time to start this live, do the events, all the heavy lifting that comes from you. And I'm always grateful to spend this hour with you and with Ashley. So Felipe, over to you.
Well, I thank you for the kind words, both of you. I appreciate it. And I couldn't do it without you. And you two really have opened my world up to whole new things that have made my life a lot better. So I know that my life is a lot better for knowing you two. But as far as the work, it's a pleasure. And this is something that brings me joy, is sharing workplace wellness information, strategies, and learning from all of you all that join us. And especially with the fact that, like, the intro, that's just me being silly late at night when I'm like slap happy and goofy. And somebody said you can create AI with an app, and I downloaded the app. I'm like, okay, this is a little bit too easy. So there's about 20 versions prior to this one that didn't make it, and there's another one after this one that I still like better, but we'll see. But besides that, for those of you who have not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Felipe Cofiño, and I am a very passionate HR executive, a career coach, and a LinkedIn enthusiast. Recently, I was named LinkedIn Top Voice, which I take that as a very honorable thing, and I don't take it lightly. It's, if anything, it's caused me to try to up my game to make sure that the information I'm providing is of value, even more than before. And these two amazing people here with me help me grow and learn every day. So for me, it's a way to give back and share like we do on the show. And anytime that we can give back with information that has helped us in our lives, whether we've gone through it successfully or we're going through it currently, we will share what's working and what's not working so that you all don't need to go through the pains that we're going through. Hopefully, that's our goal. But with this topic of return to work and the future of work, this is something that has been a very, very big topic for me, whether I've been in education, whether I've been in banking or nonprofit. All three of them have been a big factor. And some of the things I want you all to think about. And before I start sharing this real quick, if you're listening right now, let us know where you're watching from. What city, what state, what country. We want to know where our global audience is today. And also let us know if you're team live or team replay. We want to make sure that we hear from you all. And I want to thank Jay and Kenny for already being here, and Jonathan and Chris. Great to see you. Definitely, appreciate you all being here. Share the room with your network. Let them know that we're going on live so that we can go ahead and uh, have them benefit from the information that's being shared here today. And Meryl, as always, thank you for being here. You are one of our greatest supporters. We always appreciate you. So with this return to work, during the pandemic, a can of worms got open. Pandora's box got open, and we cannot close it. Remote work got opened, and everybody was doing it. Everybody across the world was doing it. All of a sudden, all the barriers that people said we had to working remotely, isn't it amazing how quickly those barriers went down and we were able to do it in order to keep the business alive? Well, now, pandemic, I think we can also say it's over. We are back to some normality. And the reality is, do we need to still work remotely? I think there's been some arguments for both sides. I will say that I've enjoyed it, but when I go in the office, I know there's a benefit to it. I see the benefit every single time of conversations I never would have had if I hadn't been in the office, ideas I never would have thought of if I had not been in the office, human connections that I wouldn't have built if I hadn't been in the office. But kind of like I tell my employees today, do you all need to see my ugly mug 5 times a day or 5 times a week? No. If I'm in the office 2 or 3 times in the week, I think that's enough to be impactful, relevant, because the reality is we need some days to strategize. We need days to be creative. We need days to think without having to always do. Because if we're going to grow and be sustainable, we got to strategize and be innovative and have time to think. And if you're constantly in doer mode, you don't have that ability. So what remote work in my eyes has given us is it's given us some freedom to be able to strategize and really focus our time. Now, I'm going to share a few arguments I've heard for and against, and I'm going to pass it on to Sumana and Ashley to share their insights. And then we'll put the link in the chat for you to join us. Welcome to Lisa. It's great to see you. And Leslie Flowers, always great to see you as well. Leslie, I can't wait to listen to your audiobook. I haven't bought it yet, but I'm going to buy it and listen to Errata on audio. I cannot wait. And Brother Charlie, thank you for coming. Appreciate you being here. So some of the arguments for returning to the office 5 days a week. Obviously, we talked about building communication, building relationships. There's value to seeing people in person. Absolutely. Financially, let's talk about the financial side of it. The company's paying rent or a mortgage or whatever you want to call it on the office space. If nobody's using it, that's not really a good use of that space. So if they can't sell it or get out of their lease, maybe there's a reason why you also want to understand the business side of that. Commercial business, let's be realistic. If people stop going to the office, commercial real estate is in trouble. That will impact the economy. Businesses in the city, I will say, working in DC with federal government back 5 days a week, as many people have been complaining, all of the businesses are so happy. They're so grateful. The small business owners, the food trucks, all the little shops of sandwich and delis that are out there. They're so grateful that people are back in the office because their business now is back to thriving like it was pre-pandemic. So I see some of the pluses of people returning to the office. I see it helping the economy with transportation. I hit all these things. But just like there are some valid reasons for it, you can argue, well, less pollution with less transportation if you have some hybrid work or full remote work. You say people save money on gas and they save time. I will say that I work longer when I work from home, and I lose hours when I go in the office commuting. But here's the thing: people have shared that they've had, some of the cons are the reduced flexibility, but also employee retention might get impacted. And again, the operations might get disrupted because people actually said that have gone back 5 days a week. I've heard recently, we are actually not as productive because everyone is chatting because everyone's in the office together. So they're getting distracted more frequently and they're not able to focus on getting their work done as fast as they were when they were at home, getting less distractions. So there are some benefits to both, but another benefit to actually going to the office I forgot to mention was there's a clear divide of when your workday ends. If I leave my laptop in the office and I close my door in the office and get in the car and go home, that's it. My workday's done. But when I have the laptop at home 24/7 and I get an idea late at night, I'm very likely to open up the laptop real quick and do something real quick because it was on my mind and I had a minute. So that can get a little bit lead to burnout if you don't manage that well. So having that return to the office does give you the ability to kind of separate home and work a little bit more. So I'm going to stop there because again, there's a lot of pros and cons. Please share in the chat what you think are some of the pros and cons of remote work or being in the office 5 days a week or the hybrid. And so And Kenny, thank you for the kind comments, by the way, I gotta say. And Stephen, welcome. And Nicole, Nick is here. So thank you all for coming. I'm gonna put the link in the chat for you all to join us on stage as I hand the microphone over to Sumana and Ashley to share their thoughts and insights. And feel free to come up and share your insights as well, or put them in the chat. So with that, I'll hand it over to Sumana. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Felipe. I love all those pros and cons, and especially the one about commercial businesses and small businesses suffering. I remember the impact of that right away when COVID started, but it's been 4 years now since the pandemic, and a lot of those old businesses, the ones that weren't able to make it, like they shut down, and I've seen a lot of those. But that culture that comes with when you go to the office and you go have lunch outside, which I never really did, but just that culture of like, hey, let's go grab a coffee, or let's go have lunch, like that vibrancy is non-existent in some places now. But I know a lot of companies are working towards the hybrid model. So I think I'll start off by saying that I'm a fan of the hybrid model, where flexibility, especially for caregivers and for parents or millennials and Gen Zs, I think we're wanting that deep work time, which you mentioned, Felipe. When you go and you have to work on an important project, you're at home, you have no distractions, you do that deep work, and then you go to the office for collaboration, for community, for sense of belonging, and having that more balanced approach to work. So I guess my perspective is don't mandate full-time in person, because you are taking away this option for individuals who need that flexibility, whether it's location flexibility. We had some comments in the chat about disability employment where folks cannot go to the office. So you're not being inclusive if you take away that option when a job can be done fully remote, or at least half of it, or 50% or 80% can be done remote. Taking that away, you're not really being an inclusive employer. Leave flexibility. I know a lot of millennials and Gen Zs are taking care of their parents. So caregiving responsibility is a very big part of the sandwich generation that we're a part of. So they value that flexibility, that I got to take my mom to the hospital or my grandparents for a doctor's appointment, and I can work a couple of extra hours in the evening to catch up for the work that I missed, because all these appointments, as you know, it happen during business hours. So that is extremely important, especially if you have a sick parent or a grandparent that you have to take care of, or a child, for example, with unique special needs, for example. And the other type of flexibility that I've talked about in the blog is also schedule flexibility, where a lot of us are not doing the traditional 9 to 5. A lot of us are with our neurodivergent capabilities. Some of us are working like 10 to 7, for example. Some of us are working 7 to 3. And those options may not always be available if you have your strict 9 to 5, you got to be in the office at this particular time, otherwise work can't get done. So as much as I value the collaboration piece, I also value the deep work part, that if you are in the office and you get distracted, then you may not be able to be able to do the work. So what's the point of me coming to the office, spending 3-4 extra hours, and I actually only got like 10% of my work done, which I will now have to catch up on my hybrid, remote work days. So I think what I'd like to end by saying is incorporate all these flexibility options: location flexibility, leave flexibility, schedule flexibility, and give your staff the option to work at their best. When people show up to work to be their best selves, that's when productivity is going to be at its highest. That's when burnout is going to be at its lowest. That's when we're going to be able to energy map and realize that, hey, I'm really good at doing complex strategies and data analysis a little bit later in the afternoon when I have no one to bother me. My Teams is on D&D, and I've seen this a lot in in-person settings. Even if you have your Teams or on D&D, someone will pop into your office and ask you a question, and there goes your flow state. So how can I make sure that I am in my flow state, prevent the burnout? I am having my non-negotiable boundaries at home, but at the same time, I'm producing for the business and all those other advantages of going to the office. So I'll stop there, but those were my initial thoughts. Ashley, over to you.
Thank you, Sumana. Yeah, I appreciate, the points that you both made. I really liked, Felipe, hearing the pros and cons that you offered. And then, yeah, Sumana, I agree with you. I think that the hybrid model is like, it's the best compromise given our options. And I really love the points that you touched on, like being able to achieve that deep work time, which I agree. I think that that's really, really important for those in our generations because it does offer that balance. And then, of course, it offers flexibility, accessibility. Like you said, people are caregiving. And so, given our options, I do think the hybrid model is the best of them. But I wanted to kind of do a little bit of world building because what I think is both like really amazing and also unfortunate is that, like Felipe said, this started during the pandemic. We had never thought that remote work could happen on that scale as quickly as it could. Then, boom, it happened. Everybody's working from home. Everybody's being productive and proactive and getting their work done from home. But I think that coming out of the pandemic, at least for me and a lot of people I know, I definitely had a little bit more hope for what the future would look like and like, what new like reality that we could imagine that would make working and childcare and all of these different puzzle pieces of our lives fit together better. And I'm going to say it, I feel like we dropped the ball, unfortunately, because now the options are only you return to the office full time every single day, you work from home full time all the time, or you do hybrid and sometimes you're in the office, other times you're not in the office. But like, I feel like that's a really reductive way of looking at this issue. And there are certain jobs that I think it makes a lot of sense for them to be completely hybrid. I used to teach. I loved to teach. I loved being with my kids full time and getting to go into the office, or I'm sorry, into the school and be in my classroom, be with my students. That was like my space. And that was a space that I think is really, really important for there to be that full time work. When I moved to corporate, though, and I was working a job that I felt like I was just kind of, an email machine, a lot of typing, a lot of being in front of the computer. Going into the office, yes, it fostered connectivity with my coworkers. Yes, I was able to be in this beautiful, cushy office downtown. All of that was great, but it did take away a huge chunk of time with commuting. It isn't completely, totally necessary to do my job from within an office versus from inside of my house. And so I of course I don't know what the answer is, but I will say that I wish that there was kind of more imagination when deciding what the answer could be and taking into account more options than just you're working all the time in the office or you're working all the time at home or you get to split your time equally between the office or at home and just coming up with some other options outside of those. And I don't know what they are, but I wanted to use my time just to open up that conversation. Like if we all could imagine our best workplace scenario, what would it be? And how can we like work together to maybe start to create those scenarios and open up those conversations? So that's where I'll end. I'll pass it back over to Felipe.
Well, thank you, Ashley, and I love what you all shared, and it definitely there's so many things, and some of the comments that people shared here. I know that Guy, or I don't know if it's Guy or Guy. I apologize if I mispronounce your name, as well as who else was commenting. I think Travis. You know, if people are doing the job and they're getting the work done, that should be setting the message. If we set expectations of what people need to do when they work remotely and those expectations are met, then where's the problem? Now, the problem lies is when people, and I've seen leaders and I've had leaders that, oh, one employee took advantage of something, so now that benefit is gone for all the rest of the employees. That is not how you manage or lead people. You address the issue with the one person. Leaders who do that are doing it because they avoid confrontation. They rather punish the masses than address one individual directly. And that is a sign of a bad leader. They say one bad apple can spoil the whole batch. Well, now if you pull the bad apple out, the rest of the batch is okay. So address that issue with that one employee. Make sure that they understand, hey, that's not okay. And if you continue to do that, you're going to lose your job. And here are the expectations that I expect you to abide by. That's where HR unfortunately comes in and says document it, because clearly by you saying it, they're not doing it. So they need to see it in writing. They need to know you mean it. And it's amazing. The moment you put it in writing, unfortunately, people tend to react. But that's holding someone accountable, you all. That's what it's called, accountability. It's not that hard of a thing to do, but you can make it very hard to do if you try to avoid it. And that's where a good leader is going to learn how to address issues and hold people accountable. But if you set clear expectations, that is where it can make a huge difference. And we do have someone who has joined us on stage, Ashley and Sumana. So I'm going to ask, is it Guy or is it Guy? Please let us know. And please share your thoughts on this topic.
This is Guy. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I find this topic to be intriguing because of the fact that, I know that remote work, fully remote works, but you're right, Felipe, is that you definitely have to set the right expectations from the get-go. I mean, training and development, once you onboard somebody, needs to be in the office. And once you're comfortable, you can let them free. But you got to give people the autonomy, to make good decisions, the right decisions, the best decisions. Employee relationships have to be on point. And together, if you build that trusting foundation, then you allow people to have that autonomy to work from home and to do whatever they need to do to get the job done. And these are all realistic goals. Obviously, you can't set something unrealistic, right? But, we work worldwide, nationwide. And, what you guys are talking about is awesome. And I think that if people really understand that indeed, if you set the right expectations up front, that you understand, or the people that work for you understand what their goals are, their realistic goals, and what they need to achieve on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, right? And that we can all move together in a win-win situation, that will work. That'll definitely work. But on the other hand, if you just wing it and say, okay, you guys can just start working remote without having that high level of understanding and what you're expected to do and to achieve, then that's where I really feel that the fallout happens. And that's really what happens when you have a company that fails on that piece of it, allowing people to work remote. But again, the whole company mission is to make sure that achieving company goals, objectives, the whole 9 yards. But it starts out with the leadership. It really does. So I'm gonna let you take it back from there.
Well, Guy, thank you for sharing. You shared some great insights, and we do have some more people in the green room. So Jay and John will be right there, hang in there. But Guy, you brought up some great points, and thank you for coming up here and sharing that. And for those of you listening, feel free to join us on stage. I do want to give a shout out to some people that joined us. Melissa Houston, my partner in crime on Careers Counseling Coaching. Sandra, great to see you. David Jones, thank you for coming. Brother Charlie, thank you again for being here. Dan, it's great to see you. So here's the thing with the things that you mentioned, Guy: onboarding, relationships, setting goals. Like you said, these are things that leaders need to do to make sure that the person has the highest chance of being successful. But when they don't, they take the easy way out. They think, oh, guess what? I have somebody remote. I can just get them started. Here's your laptop. Here's what I need from you. Go. No, there's got to be some training. There's got to be onboarding. We can't take shortcuts because of remote. And that's where it has failed. It's failed because people haven't been onboarded and trained properly. It's failed because the managers or the leaders have not maintained relationships with the remote employees and stayed engaged with them. And they failed because they didn't set goals. So I think what you brought up there was so valuable. And I really appreciate that because it is something that a good, strong leader can make it work. We've seen it happen. I mean, think about this. How many of you saw leaders rise to the occasion during the pandemic? We saw the ones that rise to the occasion, and we saw the ones that failed horribly at handling the situations. And so that onboarding and relationship and setting goals was spot on. Sumana and Ashley, by the way, for those of you listening, the green room is full. If you're trying to get in the green room and it tells you it's full, hang in there and we will allow you to come in a minute. I just need to move people around a little bit. But Sumana and Ashley, please share your thoughts about Guy's share.
Yeah, thank you so much, Guy. I appreciate that. Was loving your comments. So thanks for popping up and sharing, the perspective on expectations. And I put a comment as well. It's like, are you as an employee delivering on the targets and the deliverables? I want to just bring in two kind of new ideas as we're sort of discussing this really amazing topic. The one that sort of came to mind when Guy was speaking was, as a business owner now, I am very cognizant of my time. Every hour that I work on a client's file, for me, that is like billable time. I'm like, am I doing the right type of task for this client because I'm billing the client? So every hour is very strategically done. Whereas when I worked in corporate and healthcare, it was different. You're a little bit loose with your time. So what happens with remote workers, with those expectations very clear, and if you as a manager have expected them to do a project and say, hey, I need this done by Friday, and they get it done by Friday, how they do it, it doesn't matter. It gets done by Friday. So the one point I do want to make here is the idea of the old school ways of how performance evaluation used to happen, which I think it still does in a lot of organizations, which is annual performance assessments, which I don't really think it works in remote spaces now, in hybrid spaces now. What we need is more of that continuous, ongoing performance evaluation and assessment with the employee. Are they meeting the targets, like you said, Guy, like in the right time frame with the right expectations? Are they burning out? Are they still part of the culture of the workplace? And building onto that, the second point that I want to make is that we have to learn how to adopt this new way of working. And I think a lot of workplaces are failing at not managing their remote teams is because the culture now is changing. The title of our conversation is Rebuilding Connections. So if you only get to see your teams a couple times a week in person, you now have to make up for that loss of in-person time with your Zoom and your Teams and all these other remote ways of communicating with them. So the culture of the workplace has to change as we change these policies of how we are working together or not working together, I guess. I'll leave there and I'll pass it over to Ashley for her comments, and I look forward to hearing from the others as well.
Thank you, Sumana. And yes, thank you so much, Guy, for sharing. I wrote down a lot of really great words that you used. The first is autonomy. I think that is like such a great and important word, and an important thing to consider when you're working with leaders and employees. And I also really love, you use the word foundational. And both of these paired together, I think really gets to the heart of the issue, which is that unless leadership is intentionally putting in the effort to build a foundationally inclusive culture, a culture that makes sure that their employees know what the goals are, what's expected of them. Of course, remote work is not going to work, because then what are we doing? We're just at home. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know the goal that we're trying to achieve. And it's difficult. It's difficult. We're working with people. People change every day. It's large systems. Lots of organizing needs to happen in order to make it work, but it's possible for it to make it work. And I agree with you. I think that working toward all of that with the goal of allowing your employees to work remotely and to have that autonomy is completely how it should be. So thank you for sharing that. I thought it was genius. And I will pass over to Felipe to introduce our next
Thank you.
guest.
Thank you. And Guy, thank you again for coming up here. I appreciate you sharing your insight. I'm going to move you back to the green room so we can let other people join us on stage as well. But thank you again for joining us and sharing those great insights. All right. So now, um, before we get to Jay, I did want to address a question that came up real quick from Grace, which is something for everyone to think about, and we'll come back to it, Grace. But she wanted to hear our thoughts about these social media videos, TikTok videos, where people are making fun of barely attending meetings and doing other things while working, showcasing their disinterest and doing very bare minimum. So that is something that I've seen where you see people. I've seen the really bad ones where the person's like, "Oh, well, I'm getting my nails done, or I'm out with friends at a picnic while we're having this meeting." It's like that's not professional. And so I do think that that does hurt a lot of the remote perception because I think CEOs out there see that and they start wondering, "Are my employees doing that?" And once you get that seed of doubt in your head, it can go real south. So we'll come back to that question, but let's go to Jay. Jay, thank you for coming up on stage and being here. Share your thoughts or questions. The mic is yours.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Loud and clear.
Excellent. Hi, Felipe. Hi, it's nice to see you again. Um, Hi, Sumana, and actually, it's nice to meet you. Um, yeah. So about like remote work and the return to office mandate. I don't think return to office should be required. I think that should be like an option. Uh, and it all depends upon what the nature of the work is and the nature of the person. Now, I work in retail, right? And so I don't have a choice to work either to work in person or remote. I have the only choice I have is in person. So for me, in person, it's great. I get that face to face interaction and I get to meet a lot of people. Um, and that's an industry where you won't get as much um remote option, I guess, unless you're working in like a headquarter type facility, then that may be a different story. Now, the way that I see it is, as you may not know, I'm involved in people with disabilities, and I think having that remote option is very much very important. Because not everyone has the same not everyone has the ability to go to work in person because they may not be able to they can't drive, they may not have the financial need to go to work in person, or not financial need, financial requirements to attend the work in person. So they need that remote accommodation, and we talk about that in our group all the time. um Another thing that I think about is there are two things that also come to mind is if we go with the hybrid option, you know, what how much does it cost the company to provide the equipment to the employee working for that company? I mean, this the financial costs play a role in all this on this decision. And the third thing that came to mind is um I agree with what Shimana had mentioned about, accommodation, and I mentioned this in the chat. And then also the last thing I really wanted to mention is when I think of this topic, I also think about um like job preparation, when it comes to job interviews, right? You try and find a good you try and get a good scheduling interview, but uh the employee may want to meet with you in person, but what if you don't have that luxury, more accommodation? What if the only accommodation you have is in person, is remote? How do you how do you work that out with the employer? So I think those three things play a important role. I'm curious to hear some feedback, but thank you for letting me on.
Jay, thank you for coming up. You brought up some excellent points. I'm so glad you brought them up because the first point, nature of work. The nature of work, if you're in retail, you're in hospitality, guess what? You gotta be in person. It's just the nature of the business. And so when I was in hospitality, we were open 365 days a year in a hotel. Okay. We had worked holidays, we worked weekends, we worked overnights. But guess what? I chose that job. I chose those shifts. I chose to work for that company. So part of this does weigh on the individual. Don't try to make a company change their model to fit you. Try to find a company that you can fit into their model ideally, because that's the reality. If you can fit into the model, then you know that's more sustainable. Because to your point, a company that's flexible is going to be attractive to people that have challenges with transportation or disability or need accommodations. Um, and I mean, transportation alone, that's a huge financial burden. Some people don't have the ability to get to where they need to. Some people have disabilities, like you said. So those things are so important to take into consideration. But I think that we have to be realistic about the nature of the jobs. And that's why I think what I've been hearing is that the hybrid model is what works best, and people definitely have a chance to find jobs that have those, but not all jobs are going to offer that. And if they're not going to offer it for jobs that you think will work, then that might not be the right company for you. And you also brought up the equipment. The equipment is a huge factor. Here's a financial cost to the employer, you all, that you may not be aware of. Any of you that work remotely, you probably have a company laptop, and that's fine. You probably got screens too, and a keyboard. Well, the last three places I've worked at, when we've had to let someone go or someone quits and they return the equipment, if they were remote in another state, we had them return the laptop, of course, because that was expensive equipment. But guess what? The screens, we usually had two screens, they cost more to ship back than the actual cost of the screens themselves. So a lot of times the employer will say, just keep the screens, it's not worth shipping them back. It's too expensive. Well, that's a financial loss to the company. I mean, the equipment that's going back to that employee that's leaving the company. So there are some things that a company has to take into consideration when they do offer remote. They need to offer equipment. They need to offer supplies, and that's something that can be challenging. Nick in the comments mentioned about insurance. In my experience, at least, Nick, insurance has not been a factor. If you're full time, you're full time. You get insurance, unless you're global. So so great comments, Jay. I'm going to hand it over to Sumana and Ashley to share their thoughts before we get to John. Just want to let people know that we are coming up to the last 15 minutes of the show, and we have another person that's joining us on stage here as well, Gabby. So, but Jay, I'm going to hand it over to Sumana and Ashley to share their points, and then we'll go from there. Ashley, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I just mostly was going to echo what you already brought up, Felipe. I appreciate the fact that, Jay, you focused on the fact that it's up to us to make the choices that work the best for us. And we have to take into consideration the nature of the work and, of course, the nature of the person. And I think that that is so true and also easy to forget at times. But I just wanted to echo that. And we appreciate you for coming up and sharing that. Sumana, I'll pass over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Jay, I appreciated the comments. I think the nature of work person definitely resonated. And the only comment that I added in the chat box was, managers and leaders who are monitoring our teams, like, you need to be very aware, is the person that I'm hiring, like, what are their strengths? Do we make this hybrid option available to them? Do you think that they will succeed in remote spaces? There's a lot of us that don't like working alone all the time. There's a lot of us that do want the people side of that job. So I think managers have a big responsibility here as to noticing like, will this person succeed in this environment, or should I just be monitoring like what works best for them? The only other comment I'll make about equipment, and Felipe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I've noticed is that, first of all, I've been doing remote work for even before COVID. I would say since 2010. A lot of us had the option to do remote work as managers. We were always given our little laptop that we could take, our little docking station. So the cost of the equipment, when COVID started, we were basically given the mandate of like, take your office equipment and take that home. So nothing really changed in terms of like the equipment. It's a lot of the equipment was already ones that was available in the office. People just took that home. I guess over the course of a couple of years now, those big laptops have now been changed to smaller laptops with a docking station. So maybe there's a little bit of expense there. But in the grand scheme of things, the internet costs, we pay for that. I pay for that out of pocket. Any remote workers is paying internet. The company never really reimburses you for that. We are paying for electricity, for example. So I think that cost sort of like balances out. The tech is a lot cheaper now, I think, than it was before. So I might argue that the cost of equipment isn't all that big of a deal because we use that equipment whether we're in the office or whether you're at home. Definitely the accommodation piece, 100%. I know there's organizations that specifically work with disability services and offer these remote full-time remote opportunities to individuals that need that. And there's a lot of organizations here in Alberta that specifically only do that because they know that folks can't come to the office. So again, finding that right fit for you is extremely important. Jay, thank you so much for your comments. I appreciate it. I love the conversation in the chat box or in our live there. Guys coming through with a lot of amazing things. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I just want to bring one more thing that just came to mind now that I think about it. I think one of the other thing, one benefit I do see that about in-person experiences is that, you can have as much distractions as you want, right? I mean, one of my family members, um, they work from home, but it's really hard to when you have distractions like noise or anything like that in the background, and when it comes to like meetings. And so like I find that when you're in a meeting on Zoom or Teams, and you have noise in the background, I think that's the hard part about the remote or hybrid option. But yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I've talked too much, but thank you.
Well, thank you, Jay, for coming up here and sharing that. I'm going to put you back in the green room here. And we got 12 minutes left, you all. So I'm going to move on to John. John, thank you for being patient and waiting. Please share your insights or questions. The mic is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Felipe, for letting me be here. Kenneth Dunner invited me, and we were chatting in LinkedIn, and he sent me the link. So I told him I'd keep it objectively. I am a retired vet who also runs companies and also runs, works for the government as a program manager. So my perspective on remote work is similar to Jay's and similar to others who've been in retail and others who've been in places that you have to have remote work. In the military, as I was on active duty, you have to have special trust and confidence in the people out there because when you're deployed into a location, you have to have trust and special confidence of the individuals that are on the field doing what they need to do. And they're lower levels, they're 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds and below, that you give special trust and confidence. So what I hear from what I think people are saying is like their special trust and confidence needs to happen when you are in remote roles. But, went from active duty to being remote during the COVID and then had to come back to work through work from home. Of course, I'm flexible with that, but, um, you know, there are first responders, there are military, the hospitals. There are many of industries that don't allow remote work, and you really can't have remote work. Maybe there's a hybrid option in some things, but there's not a hybrid or remote option in every industry. And I understand that's a choice, but some choices are, like you join the military, you serve your country, those kind of things. So my perspective is just slightly different. And being my own boss for a while, I had a remote VA, a virtual assistant out of the Philippines, and I did have to give him a training plan, and I did have to tell him how to do certain things. So I just add a little different perspective from the group. I listened to it earlier. I came offline. Kenneth talked me off a ledge, and so now I'm back in here listening objectively with that veteran military mindset, and not trying to crush the meeting or anything like that. So you guys keep doing what you're doing. It's interesting to hear how the public sector thinks about certain things compared to all the years of, I was in the Marine Corps. So thank you for your time, Felipe.
Oh, thank you so much, John, and thank you for your service and for all the amazing perspectives that you brought in. I absolutely loved the comment about we need special trust and confidence. And I think that's what I was alluding to earlier when I said, as our future of work, which is what the series is, as we're changing the way that we work, I think we need to change the meanings of certain words and adapt to different ways of approaching well-being and supporting our employees, with that neurodiversity lens, with the accommodations for disabilities, with being able to recognize that some individuals thrive in person, some individuals thrive in remote. What do I do for my employee who has a sick mom or a dad? Managers, and this is where I think I'll stop and I'll maybe pass over to Ashley for a second here, is that the effort goes, because we started Workplace Wellness Hour 3 years ago when we were talking about quiet quitting, which I know there's a lot of conversation in the chat here about TikTok and what are the employees and CEOs looking for when we make these sort of comedic references about, oh, I'm not really working. I log into my computer at 8 a.m. in my PJs. And, for me, when I started making content on TikTok 4 years ago now, 5 years ago, I actually never got a chance to experience that comedy because I was working. I was supporting the COVID response team. So we never really got to be at home. I thought it was funny when I was watching those videos, but I didn't get to experience it. And a year later, a lot of these folks went back to recognizing that this is not what's helping me. I'm actually burning out, not because of overwork, but because of underwork and being underwhelmed. And a lot of these folks have had to change the way that they perceive work to be. And yeah, we have to be careful about what we post on TikTok and LinkedIn, but as I said in my comment, a lot of this was just exaggerated in a coping mechanism, for our mental health and well-being, because we didn't know how to cope with COVID. So we said, we'll just make something funny out of it. But a lot of the high performers that I know were not doing that. They were still showing up, wearing their office outfits to work and showing up on Zoom and performing at their best. Not to say that the ones who were making these funny TikToks weren't, but it's just about learning that, like you said, that trust and confidence, what does that mean in 2025? What does that mean? And can managers who have the bigger, opportunity here to lead by example, like can we make that effort? Ashley, over to you. I know Felipe is driving.
Oh, okay, good to know. And I'll be really quick, especially since we're nearing the end here. But John, yeah, I really wanted to also, yeah, I feel like I'm just echoing tonight, but I think that what you said too, the special trust and confidence, that was really, really resonant. And you mentioned that you were kind of bringing in like the veterans perspective, the veterans mindset, which we of course appreciate. But I think that it's not much different from a lot of other, workplaces, having that trust and confidence, being able to build that foundationally with your employees, with leadership, and making sure that that's really, really clear is going to lead to a healthy workplace, regardless of where you're working. And I think that that's something that we can all, continue to hold. And then Sumana, I wrote down, I think it's interesting that you brought up like the underworked and underwhelmed side of remote work, because that's something that I experienced too, going from teaching to teaching remotely from home. And it's like you have 40 kids in your face all the time, all day, working in a school, to then it's just you in front of a computer. Some kids are absent, but it's silent, and it's hard making that transition. So I appreciate you bringing that up as well. And Felipe, I'll pass back to you.
Hi, sorry. So real quick, I just wanted to say, John, I love what you shared. trust is a huge thing, y'all. One thing about trust is that when trust is given and it's not taken advantage of, it goes a long way. And I currently work in a place right now that offers that trust, and it's one of those things where if I was not producing and doing the work that was expected of me, that trust would be taken away and I would be held accountable. And I think that's the bottom line, is that trust your employees, give them that gift of trust, and then see where that goes, but make sure you inspect what you expect. So John, thank you again for sharing that. I'm going to carefully put you in the green room. And Gabby, please, thank you for joining us on stage. Please on mic and share your thoughts or questions. The mic is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. I love what everyone was saying. I think trust is such a big thing to talk about now, especially because building trust in the ways that we're typically used to, where we're able to see body language and able to be familiar with people over a long period of time, is different when it's trying to build trust over digital. And so I think this is a very interesting time, because I actually have pretty much only experienced hybrid or pretty much completely remote work. And so I used to joke with my remote counterparts and colleagues that I grew up in a house where my mom was like, oh, be afraid of, or be scared of like stranger danger on the internet. But now we're in a place where it's all strangers on the internet, and that's who my colleagues are and who's hiring me and things of that nature. So I just think we're all evolving with the tech as well and trying to figure out how to navigate that, I guess.
Thank you, Gabby. Ashley, do you have any comments? Felipe is still driving. I thought I'd check in with you first.
Yeah. First of all, Gabby, I'm obsessed with your hair. I'm just looking at your profile picture, and it's very pretty.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I completely am with you. You said like we're looking at strangers on the internet. And I remember on the side, somebody had made a comment earlier that when speaking to one of their colleagues, they mentioned that they craved being in the office to get that mentorship and to get that friendship and to be able to, network with their colleagues better. But then, of course, they also wanted the balance of getting to work remotely. And I think that it really is a juggling game, because it can be alienating. It can be difficult when you are working in a space that feels like it's strangers on a screen, which I think just requires more training, more thinking about this, more coming up with ways to actually make it work for us, rather than us just trying to fit into these options that we happen to have, but that might not be the best. So thank you so much for sharing that. And Sumana, I'll pass over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Gabby. Yes, I do also love your profile photo on LinkedIn. I've also been loving all the conversations, and this comment about trust. No matter, especially the work that I do, when we talk about workplace well-being and sense of belonging as an instructor, as a researcher, one of the biggest things I do when I teach is I want the adults I'm teaching to trust me, and that takes a bit of time to develop, because they're dealing with so many of their own problems. And what I've noticed is with in-person, having that hybrid, because I feel like that's where we're landing on, is give people that flexibility option, that sense of belonging and that team connection, and those water cooler conversations, the hellos and the heys in the elevator, the hey, how's it going, how's your dog, those moments, those small moments of connection is what we miss when you're just sitting behind a computer all day staring at that Zoom camera. And I experience Zoom fatigue all the time, and sometimes I just want to see a human being. So I acknowledge that this is an important element of how the future of work is progressing, and not just that. I think even when it comes to psychological safety in the workplace, bullying in the workplace, harassment in the workplace, that can also happen when you're in a remote setting. But some of those heavier conversations of conflict resolution, team dynamics need to happen when the person is sitting, face to face. In fact, I even say for mental health therapy, of course, a lot of us are doing therapy online, but if there's an opportunity to go see your therapist in person, go do that. It's a completely different experience. And I'm seeing and noticing a lot of workplaces now wanting to and offering a lot of in-person training, workshops, coaching sessions, because they feel like that sense of belonging has become so important for our mental health, that we need and going back to that trust piece, I will trust you more if I see your body language, and all those comments that you've made, Gabby. I really appreciate you. I appreciate John. Felipe, I don't know if you're back, but I know we're at the 7 o'clock mark, so I know we'd like to wrap this up as well, because this has been at the our Workplace Wellness Hour. Are you back, Felipe? And if you're not, then we'll just sort of continue. I know you're driving. So just as a wrap up here, thank you so much, all of you, for, I think this has been probably one of the most insightful chat conversation that I've seen. I have to go back and read all of those comments because some of them are so great. We've been trying to put those up on the screen here. I just want to also mention that the conversations that we have in Workplace Wellness Hour, we are live every other Monday night. So typically it's 2 shows a month. I think in March, we're lucky we have 3 shows a month. So what we do is we compile all of those key messages from all the shows every month, and we do post a blog once a month so you can catch up on those key messages. Felipe also has a YouTube channel, so if you don't like watching the replay on LinkedIn because it can be a little weird, just the experience is not all that great sometimes, you can also catch that YouTube playlist. I believe it's just called Workplace Wellness Hour playlist on YouTube, on Felipe's channel. I'll find that link and put that up there. Anything coming up for you, Ashley, before I just say one more thing, but I'll pass it over to you just to kind of do a closing here for us?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Sumana. A couple of things coming up. First of all, like I've been saying, every Sunday from 4 to 5 p.m. Central Time. Oh my gosh, my words are like getting caught. Okay. Every Sunday, 4 to 5 p.m. Central Time, I have a moment to make, which is an online Zoom room for us busy adults to just carve out some time to be creative. I provide a sketchbook exercise. My friend Casey, who is a therapist, provides a playlist. She curates the vibes. And we all just sit quietly, work on our projects. And then if you want to, you could share what you worked on in the end. And it's a really, really good vibe. And we're starting to build a little community. So if anybody wants to join us over there, every 2 weeks, I say I'm going to post about it, and then I forget. I hope that this is the week. I'm going to post about it right after this. I will do it. I'll put it on my LinkedIn. And then
Yes.
the other
I'm going to
thing,
keep you accountable for that one. I'm going to message you, be like, did you post it?
I'll take that. Yes, please. And then the other thing, my friend and I, Claudia Marulanda, she's also an artist. We also are experimenting with a live room. It's on the other Mondays that Workplace Wellness Hour isn't happening. It's in the morning from 11:30 to noon Central. So if you want a little bite of creativity during your lunch break, feel free to join us. I will post about that one because it happens on LinkedIn, but I'm going to do them both. Sumana, I'll pass back over to you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I have loved being part of the show. We've been doing it, like I said in the comments, we've been doing this for 3 years. This is season 3. We've evolved so much. LinkedIn's changed. I just have one every quarter. Jeddy Wellness does a Workplace Wellness Highlights episode as well with Jeddy Wellness Ambassadors. So this month, we're doing it on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. I'll post that link in the comment here, but in the chat box here. But this is something that I only do once every 3 months. We talk about all the different strategies that we've talked about over Q1, and we do a summary conversation with the ambassadors who help me write the blogs, but they also help me with sharing and resharing the blogs on LinkedIn and on other social media. So I'm really excited for that one, which is happening on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. We'll be back on one other Monday this month, which is so cool because you get to hear from us 3 times this month. Felipe, I don't know if you're back to say a goodbye to us. If you
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, you're back. We'd love to hear your goodbye. And anything coming up for you? I don't know if you're back. I know you're driving. So please let me know. And if you are driving and if you can't, that's okay. Maybe you are driving and you can't hear us, and that's okay. Please pop in 2 Mondays from now. Hop over to Ashley's page, give her a follow. Hop over to Gabby's page, John King, Guy, Jay, all the folks who came up on stage. This has been one of the most fascinating conversations. The chat box is amazing. Lots of amazing conversations. And Guy, I think we need to definitely have you do a show with us as a special guest on a topic that probably, we can talk about offline. And that's about it from me. I look forward to probably seeing you on Wednesday. And Felipe, if you're back, I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, we can say goodnight.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so have a great night, everyone. Come back in 2 weeks. On next Sunday, I have Careers, Chaos, and Coaching with Melissa Houston. And Guy, I agree with you, Sumana. Guy, we definitely need to collaborate. I think it'd be a great collaboration. And with that, I wish everyone a great rest of your week, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for another Workplace Wellness Hour.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
Gabby.
Have a good night.
Good night. Bye, Ashley. Bye, Felipe. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye, Ashley. Thank you.
It's time again, come gather round. We're here to share insights, lift you off the ground. With culture and wellness and harmony they flow, helping you thrive, that's how we grow. Every other Monday we bring you cheer. Sumana, Ashley, and Felipe are near. Strong, the team's brighter days ahead, building a workplace where passion is spread. Tune in, meet it, it's a brand new height. Healthy, happy, let's make it right. Mental clarity, physical strength, so true. Financial wisdom and tools, just for you. Lessons and stories, insights that shine. Empower your journey, make it divine. Workplace wellness, our scenes and free insight. Join us and together, let's ignite.
Everyone, I have an announcement.
Passion is spread. Tune in, lean in, it's a brand new height. It's time again, come gather round. We're here to share insights, lift you off the ground. With culture and wellness and harmony they flow, helping you thrive, that's how we grow. Every other Monday we bring you cheer. Sumana, Ashley, and Felipe are near. Strong, the team's brighter days ahead, building a workplace where passion is spread. Tune in, meet it, it's a brand new height. Healthy, happy, let's make it right. Mental clarity, physical strength, so true. Financial wisdom and tools, just for you. Lessons and stories, insights that shine. Empower your journey, make it divine. Workplace wellness, our scenes and free insight. Join us and together, let's ignite.
Everyone, I have an announcement.